Prediction season is officially here. These are my game-by-game predictions for the Vanderbilt Commodores in the 2024 college football season. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. We're brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com and use promo code SECU at sign up to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 or more lineup. Again, that's prizepicks.com, promo code SECU to get your $50 bonus today. A pivotal year for Clark Lea and Nashville awaits, and these are my game-by-game predictions for the Vanderbilt Commodores in the 2024 college football season as we pull up Vandy's 2024 slate and each of my selections. And guys, the thing that jumps out immediately is this. As you would expect, not a lot of wins on this schedule. And guys, I want to go to this too. Speaking of Clark Lea, I hear a lot of people say, as he enters what feels like a pivotal year for his tenure there, fourth season in Nashville. But I hear a lot of people say, hey, Clark Lea needs to show us something this year. Clark Lea really needs to show something to prove he's the long-term answer there in Nashville. And my response is always, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean for Clark Lea to show something, quote unquote? Does that mean winning a SEC game? Does it mean pulling a big upset in your season opener over Virginia Tech? Like, is it something on the field specifically with the way it looks? Is it not getting blown out? Like, what does that mean? And this is probably a topic for a separate conversation, but Clark Lea needs to show us something. What does that mean? Because we all understand the situation at Vanderbilt. He's essentially trying to win with one hand tied behind his back. When it comes to NIL, when it comes to facilities, when it comes to fan support. And guys, it's hard enough to win in the SEC when you've got everyone bought in and everything aligned. And so when you don't even have that piece, the task becomes virtually impossible. And either way, as we look at the 2024 schedule, again, you can look at this schedule as daunting. You can look at this schedule as, man, what a ton of opportunity there is that lies ahead. That's the case in week one, guys. One of the more fun non-conference matchups as the Vanderbilt Commodores host the Virginia Tech Hokies at First Bank Stadium in Nashville. This a noon Eastern time, 11 a.m. local time kickoff there, August 31st on the first Saturday. Listen, I'm not saying Vandy's going to win this game. I'm picking Virginia Tech. I think Virginia Tech is going to be a really good team this year. But if Vanderbilt's going to make some noise, this is a great opportunity in week one to come out of the gate and at least show something. Show some signs of promise. Give people a reason to believe that there's going to be promise in year four of Clark Lea. I've got Virginia Tech winning the football game. I just, guys, you look at the roster realistically, Vandy is lacking in lots of areas. But I will say this. With Diego Pavia under center, this new offensive scheme, new offensive system they're implementing, it's going to look different on the offensive side of the football. Clark Lea taking over on defense. Who knows? I mean, if you really want to kick the door down and let folks know that, hey, we're all sleeping on Vandy, go beat Va Tech week one. That being said, again, guys, I think the Hokies are going to be a really, really good team. I think they're a dark horse contender for the ACC championship. And so I think Virginia Tech will roll into First Bank Stadium. They'll probably have more fans than Vandy fans. Let's just be honest. And Virginia Tech gets a big win in that one, guys. Week 2, you take on the Alcorn State Braves in Nashville. I think you get a win there. If you're not beating Alcorn State, guys, it really might be time to change coaches. I like Clark Lea a lot, but if you're not beating Alcorn State, the season's a lost cause. Week 3, really interesting road game. You're at Georgia State in Atlanta at Old Turner Field, by the way, at Georgia State. Listen, if Sean Elliott were still the head coach at Georgia State, of course, he's now at South Carolina. If Sean Elliott were still the head coach, I'd probably mark this down as a loss for Vandy. But you know what? Going on the road, I know. What type of environment's that really going to be like? But Georgia State, a lot of moving pieces on their own as well. I think Vandy actually gets this win. I think you could argue, too, that this is Vandy's most important game of the year. Because I think you got to find a way to go 3-1 in non-conference. From there, see if you can steal a SEC win. But you got to beat Georgia State. You got to beat Georgia State. You got to go 3-1 in the non-conference. I think this is probably your most difficult non-conference game. And I do think Clark Lea and company find a way to get the job done. Again, the offense, going to be somewhat exciting. I'm excited to see what it is, and what it looks like. Diego Pavia finds himself, comes into his own. I think they have a big offensive day, and I do think they beat Georgia State. So, guys, stop the count. At this point, Vandy's got a winning record. They are 2-1. This is where things start to get rough as you enter SEC play. You've got at Mizzou in Como, your first SEC game. SEC did you no favors with that one, man. Mizzou's going to be really good. They get a big win. Then you got the bye week, Saturday, September the 28th, before you take on the Alabama Crimson Tide in Nashville. You know, there's some of these guys that obviously the picks, I like to go into detail and explain them. Picking a loss to Bama, do I really have to go into much detail and explain? I just two totally different rosters across the board. Bama will come in. They will roll in this one. They will roll. Saturday, October the 12th at Kentucky. Now, this one's kind of interesting. Kentucky, I think, has a really good roster this year. I think they're an 8-win football team. But Vandy's played them close. Heck, Vandy beat them two years ago, actually. In Lexington, Vandy beat them 2 years ago. That was one of the reasons for all the optimism going into last year. So, when you start looking at most likely SEC wins, I'm not saying this one necessarily is the most likely, but you've done it before. That being said, I think Kentucky does get the win. Again, I like their roster, guys. Like I mentioned, I think they're an 8-4 football team this year, and I think you fall to Kentucky. The following week, really interesting non-conference game. You jump back into non-conference play. The Ball State Cardinals in Nashville, Saturday, October the 19th. I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't really know what to think of this one. I could absolutely see the upset happening, but I don't think Ball State is going to be all that good this year from what I've read up on them. I think they're through a transitional period as well. So I think Vandy does get the win. Again, it is critical you go 3-1 in the non-conference. You just have to, right? If Clark Lea wants to hold on to any goodwill he may still have in Nashville, you got to go 3-1 in the non-conference. Bottom line, end of story. And I think you will beat Ball State, and you will go 3-1 in the non-conference. You jump back into conference play, guys, the following week to close out October. The Texas Longhorns come to Nashville. And I know we've all seen the jokes on social media. Vandy owns the all-time series record. I think it's like 8-3-1. And that's been a really fun talking point. And enjoy it. Vandy fans, continue to enjoy it, because when Texas comes to town, they might score 100 points. I've got Texas winning this game. I just don't see how Vandy keeps up. The following week, you kick off the November slate going on the road to Auburn. Now, what makes this game really intriguing? Is Vanderbilt going to win this game? Probably not. But they're going to be rolling in this one confident, because they essentially, guys, in case you missed it, raided New Mexico State's not entire roster, but a lot of their roster, their coaching staff, both OC and DC. And you got Diego Pavia, who literally beat Auburn a year ago. So they'll roll in confident, if nothing else. I mean, again, when you talk about most likely SEC wins, sorry, Auburn, but you got to put this one up there because this guy, Diego Pavia, literally beat them last year. I think Auburn will avenge that loss. I don't think they'll let Diego Pavia beat them twice, but just saying, Auburn, don't let it happen again. I do think Auburn gets the win. The following week, you return home. You've got the South Carolina Gamecocks in Nashville. South Carolina going for like their 15th win in a row over Vandy. You know, you talk to Vandy folks, it's really funny. They've essentially just given up in this series. Like, you know what? It's just Vanderbilt cannot beat South Carolina. It's going to happen one of these years, guys. It really is. It's going to happen one of these years. And if it happened this year, it would probably serve as the knockout blow for Shane Beamer's tenure in Columbia. I mean, realistically, right? So again, when you look at most likely SEC wins, I think this one against South Carolina, maybe the road trip the week prior to Auburn, but this one against South Carolina is right up there with, if Vandy's going to win an SEC game, it's probably this game. Now, do I think it happens? No. I think South Carolina, you know, give them credit. I thought made some upgrades, especially on the defensive side via the portal. You know, offensively, I think by this point, Lenora Sellers and company and that run game is going to be clicking. And again, guys, I just don't see Vandy having the horses, the athletes to keep up. But I tell you what, if Clark Lea's defense able to get a couple turnovers off a young quarterback, you may look up in the fourth quarter and all of a sudden we got a one-score game. And at that point, who knows, right? And Vandy's played South Carolina really, really tough over the years. Last year was obviously a blowout in that cold, rainy day at Williams-Brice Stadium. But, I mean, if you're looking for an SEC win, that South Carolina game, I'm sure Vandy's got that one circled. Then you've got the bye week on November the 16th before you return to action for the following 2 weeks at LSU on November 23rd. Guys, I don't think this is even close. Night game at Tiger Stadium. Well, that doesn't help your chances. I think LSU gets a big win here. And then the following week, you welcome the Tennessee Volunteers to First Bank Stadium in Nashville. Guys, it was really, really fun and really cool to watch Vandy in the mid-2010s and the way they would torment Tennessee. I think at one point that series over the course of a decade was like 5-5 or maybe 6-4 Tennessee or something like that. Those days are long gone, guys. I'm a believer in Tennessee. I think they're a college football playoff team, and I think Tennessee runs it up on Vandy. I mean, I don't see how Clark Lea's defense is going to stop the Volunteers. I think they get a big win, and that culminates in a 3-9 finish, 0-8 in SEC play. And if it works out exactly like this, guys, listen, context matters, the way you're losing games, how you look. But I would say this, Vandy, if you fire Clark Lea, who are you going to get? Who are you going to convince to take that job? And I'm not sitting here saying that Clark Lea doesn't need to, quote unquote, show something. There needs to be some reason to have optimism about the future. But I mean, Clark Lea, a Vandy guy, cut his teeth there in Nashville, was a player at Vanderbilt. He gets it. He gets it. Probably more than anyone else you could go hire. I just, even with this record of finish, guys, unless you're just getting dragged week in, week out, then maybe you say, you know what, we got to make a change. But I just, even with this record of finish, I don't see it. I think they should give Clark Lea at minimum one more year. So, again, guys, I've got the Vanderbilt Commodores 3-9, 0-8 in SEC play. Do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you think the Vanderbilt Commodores will fare in the 2024 college football season? Guys, that's going to do all for me. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. Until next time, guys, I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we'll catch you on the other side.